This is All India Radio. In the program Spotlight, now we bring you a discussion on Prime Minister's virtual summits with global leaders, a new paradigm. The participants are Anil Wadhwa, former diplomat, and Nilova Roy Chaudhary, journalist.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi and the Prime Minister of Finland, Sanna Marin, held a virtual summit on the 16th of March. As the world is beginning to get out of the COVID pandemic, the things like virtual summits are becoming increasingly a reality, and this was one of the most important ones that the Indian Prime Minister has held recently. And the agenda with Finland covers a very wide range of issues. The two Prime Ministers spoke at some length about the shared values of democracy, rule of law, equality, freedom of speech, and a commitment to work for multilateralism and rules-based international order and so on. But what is also important is the other agendas that India and Finland have. And these include things, of course, like climate change and the environment, but also, very importantly, education and the Arctic Circle, in which both are members. Anil, I'd like to ask you, what is the significance of these virtual summits and why is Finland important to India?
As far as Finland is concerned, I think it's a very progressive, society and economy today. As you know, Finland is a world leader in technology, in science and in education in particular. And within the European Union plays a very important role as far as the whole policy towards sustainability partnerships is concerned. This was a very extensive agenda. Obviously, it was not just a digital partnership that India and Finland talked about. And as we move forward, the digital domain will become very important for India. Plus, we had a high-level dialogue which is set up on education ministries of both countries. Then they talked about a sustainability partnership, which involves a number of very important issues like clean energy and circular economy and sustainable development and growth, etc. But very importantly, how does India and Finland cooperate in the Arctic, which is now coming up as a very hot topic. In future, it will become very important as well. Countries, how they can cooperate in Africa, how can they strengthen multilateralism, and of course, EU and India relationship, where Finland is a major player, as I said, where Finland is a country which stresses on gender equality, for instance. It wants to strengthen the WTO and brings in the elements of biodiversity into this relationship, which is again very important subject for India. So between these, if you look at the diversity of the subjects that were discussed, it's very clear that India and Finland, the relationship becomes very important in the context of the future development of India and the vision that it has in terms of the transformation of its society for the common good of its population.
Right. Among the major things that is now beginning to happen, of course, in any discussions at the level of government and heads of state is the COVID-19 pandemic, the world gradually beginning to get out of this pandemic. So at this particular summit, the Prime Ministers emphasized the tremendous global efforts that have been in place to speed up the development and manufacture and research into the manufacture of COVID-19 vaccines. And Prime Minister actually said that India has provided over 59 million doses to more than 17 countries, including through COVAX. Prime Minister Marin of Finland also said that, they've invested heavily in research work, particularly through COVAX and in new technologies for COVID-19 vaccines. Going ahead, how important, again, do you think this new sort of global collaboration in what we are calling the COVID Maitri program are going to be in terms of India's engagement with other countries?
It's very important that India gets all the support from as many countries as possible in the multilateral context as far as WTO is concerned with its program of vaccine Maitri. As you rightly said, already these 59 million doses given to 70 countries speaks a lot through COVAX. And India is determined that the multilateral system must support this effort. It should not be regressive, and that as many countries as possible and populations around the world should benefit through this effort. Now, of course, India is quite well placed in terms of its production capacity, etc., but does not want, things like IPRs and curbs on technology and equipment to come in the way. of expanding and ramping up this production, which is, after all, for the common good.
Exactly. In fact, India and Finland also have Africa as a fairly important part of their bilateral agenda. And Africa is the continent that sort of lends itself to something like this, where the joint efforts without looking into IPRs makes a lot of difference in terms of providing vaccines to all of the 54 countries there, because Africa has been one of the countries that is seriously lagging thus far in getting doses of the vaccination. So India, sustainable development, clean energy, all of these things are on the agenda that India and Finland have, with Africa as a center also of their discussions and conversations and work going forward and the partnership. How do you think India and Finland can actually hone in on their joint efforts to make a difference in Africa?
If we look at the joint statement which has been issued at the end of this summit meeting, it stresses a lot on research and development, innovation, energy and clean technologies, and of course trade and investment. But what is most important is that Africa was singled out as a very important area for collaboration going forward. And I think the two countries have decided also that later in the year they would have a separate meeting on Africa to identify the particular areas where they would be working together. Now, obviously, as you rightly said, the development aspect in Africa is the focus, but at the same time, they would like to pool in their own, strong points. The Finnish strong point on innovation and science and technology, and the Indian expertise as well, and the experience in Africa which they have, working for many, many years on development cooperation, the human resources that India has deployed in Africa already, and the excellent relationship that India enjoys with African leaderships and countries over the years. So if you put these all together, obviously, it is going to help the continent develop much more than it could otherwise. And also, it would help both countries to do more of trade and investment or joint projects together, which would help both countries.
And another very, very critical part that both Prime Minister Modi and Prime Minister Marin have emphasized, I believe, is the whole green growth and the sustainability of development efforts that are happening in Africa, and essentially dealing with these massive issues of biodiversity loss and freshwater and ocean degradation, deforestation, desertification, and pollution. All of which, of course, are very, very crucial not only to Africa, but certainly to India as well and the rest of the world, given how much climate change is impacting all of us. So these are again issues in which the Nordic countries particularly, and Finland in particular, have a great deal of expertise. So is this also something that India and the Nordic Council, for example, the summit level meetings which Prime Minister Modi sort of initiated with these Scandinavian countries, is this all gelling into, sort of melding into part of this whole effort to ensure sustainability of development?
Yes, I think you rightly said that the Nordic countries and Finland in particular are leaders in this respect. And obviously, India needs a partnership with the Nordic countries in this respect as well, other than, of course, working together in Africa on these issues. But the India-Nordic Summit is going to happen later this year. And as preparation for that, it's important that India engages with as many Nordic countries, before that, in preparation for this summit. Of course, before that, we have the India-European Union Leaders Summit in Portugal in May as well. But equally, the India-Nordic Summit later this year would be very important for these particular issues that you mentioned, especially clean energy and circular economy and sustainable development and green growth. Because it's here that India, with its large population and, the problems of degradation, etc., which it has faced because of a resource crunch, obviously needs the best of technologies going forward, and making sure that the switch is made in time for India to be accepted as a leader in the effort towards climate change and green growth going forward.
The Arctic is another area that both India and Finland share very closely. In fact, at the last meeting of the Arctic Council, India regained its observer status, as it were, in the Finland meeting in May 2019. And India was re-elected as an observer to the Arctic Council. Now, how important is collaboration between India and Finland in the Arctic Council, and And why is the Arctic Council really that important for not just India but for the rest of the world?
So there are two main reasons why the Arctic Council has become very important for the rest of the world, and that is because of the climate change, which has resulted in new routes being opened up due to melting of ice. That's one, and related to that is the preservation of the Arctic as a zone which does not degrade further, so that it does not affect climate change all over the world. Secondly, in terms of scientific research that it can provide, in terms of the lessons learned about what has happened and the projections that can be made, the models that can be made, which are very useful for future climate change negotiations. But more importantly, and this is the second point, is that there suddenly seems to be a competition in that area on the polar route, which is the shipping route. Now, obviously, so far, this route is open only for a few months. But if this trend continues and the ice keeps melting, as we have seen over the past few years, that will open up a new area of competition among the big powers. And there are countries like China who are in Asia, but at the same time, they have ambitious plans to make sure that they utilize this to the best of their ability, lay claims to the area as much as possible. And of course, there is competition with the United States and the Russian Federation as well. There are outside powers who are involved. India has been actually involved in research in this area for quite some time. It has 2 stations already, scientific stations. One of the first countries, the pioneering countries to have done so. Now, that is more done because of scientific research and to study the effects of climate change and effects on biodiversity. But I'm sure India would like to expand its presence there.
The other thing that I was reading in the joint statement that appeared very, very important was the whole emphasis on this high-level council for education that both countries are planning on setting up. What exactly is this going to be, sort of research-oriented? What is their stress going to be on in this collaboration?
India has just come up with a new education policy, and India wants to actually, ensure that India transforms itself, in terms of the knowledge of its population going forward. The young population should be more rounded. They should not be focused upon just one issue, but actually should understand a number of issues. So that's what we call holistic education, starting from the school level on to the college and university level. And we already have a consortium, an MOU on sort of consortium between 10 Finnish universities and the 23 IITs. Now, what we decided to do at the summit is to extend this MOU for another 5 years. Why? Because, we found it extremely important and useful that the emphasis which they have on innovation, that should continue. And as you know, the Indian government's policy lately has been on a lot of emphasis is being given to startups and innovation side, so that we have not only employment but also new technologies which emerge from this effort. The government is also supporting it in a very big way. And since Finland has been a leader in the digital domain, and obviously their education focuses a lot on quantum technologies and computing and future mobile technologies, and then moving on from there to the focus on 6G research and development, the kind of future education that will emerge in the next few years, and then the focus on digital transformation of teaching and learning. So all these are very essential and cross-cutting elements which will lead to the efforts towards utilization of artificial intelligence or cybersecurity or blockchain technologies going forward. So India wants to develop that culture in its universities. And this is the dialogue which will happen in the future. And that's why this was very important for us to extend this MOU with Finland.
Great, Anil. Thank you so very much. And we've run right out of time in this really interesting discussion which could have carried on. But thank you so very much, Ambassador Anil Wadhwa.
Thank you so much, Nilova.
You were listening to a discussion on Prime Minister's virtual summits with global leaders, a new paradigm. The participants were Anil Wadhwa, former diplomat, and Nilova Roy Chaudhary, journalist. This program was produced and presented by the News Services Division of All India Radio. You can listen to it on our mobile app, News on AIR. This program is also available on our website, newsonair.com. You may email your opinion about this program at airnsdtalks@gmail.com.
This is All India Radio. In the program Spotlight, we now bring you a discussion on vehicle scrappage policy. The participants are Anil Chekkara, transport expert, and Deepak Kumar Dash, journalist.
Welcome, Mr. Chikaraji. Yesterday, government came out with the final contours of vehicle scrapping policy, which is officially known as Voluntary Vehicle Fleet Modernization Program. But in common man's language, it is vehicle scrapping policy, which we have been hearing for past 6-7 years. So, government said that this is primarily needed for 2-3 reasons. Number one, that we need to bring down the air pollution because older vehicles cause more pollution. Second, those are also unsafe as compared to the new ones, because the fitness, obviously every vehicle gets deteriorated as it grows in the number of years. Third thing, government said that another big importance is that people are going to get benefit for one reason, that if you phase out your old vehicle, you buy a new one, you will have a better mileage, you don't need to get maintenance for next few years. So these are primarily a lot of benefits that government tried to make people understand. What I have come to know that now there will be extensive awareness program which will be taken up with people by sending messages through their mobile phone, which has been linked to their Vahan database or Sarthi database, which is for drivers and vehicles. All these promos, all these languages, all these communications will not be just in Hindi and English. Those will be in multiple languages, local languages. But if we come to the main attraction point for people to understand, is that what will be the benefits of this entire scrapping policy. So yesterday, Mr. Nitin Gadkari, our minister, he said that if anyone is buying a new vehicle in lieu of scrapping an old one, he will not get waiver in registration fee. So that's a very small amount. But he also said that the states will be advised to give 25% discount for private vehicles, 15% for commercial vehicles. How do you look at this? Will the states come on board, and why it is actually going to benefit the states if they come on board?
It is a great step towards auto industry, and I believe that we had unregulated regime of vehicles so far, and there was no control about the vehicle of the merits, and we had some sort of stereotypic decision that you scrap the vehicle irrespective of its condition. It was a very unfair decision, and it has caused a lot of, I must say, it is a national loss. It is not an individual loss that people had to scrap their good condition vehicles. So this is a big relief to the society. And secondly, I do agree that it is scrapping well done, that old vehicles are air polluting, old vehicles are unsafe. So these were the fact, but it is not 100% the issue. Issue is if we have good condition of vehicle, so it is not air polluting. If we have all maintenance controlled vehicle, it is not unsafe. So to declare the vehicle to be scrapped based upon age, I am not agreeing, being transport professional.
Yeah, what you said is right. So the policy clearly says that the scrapping or phasing out of old vehicle will not be linked to the age, but it will be only linked to the fitness of the vehicle. Mr. Chikara, when you talked about the scrapping that was happening only because of age, that is only for Delhi and NCR, but this policy is going to have impact across the country. So it's a positive step.
You have mentioned the word fitness. So this is the milestone in auto industry. We do not have any mechanism to assess the vehicle based upon it, what is its brake condition, what is its pollution, what is its adjustments, what is steering, what is suspension, and electrical things, headlamp, and so many other things. So vehicle has to be re-evaluated annually. So this fitness word has used for the first time in private vehicles. In commercial vehicles, the transport department of various states, which is accounting not more than 3% of vehicles. So Ministry of Road Transport or state government were emphasizing only for 2 to 3% of the vehicle, but 97% were not checked at all. So this is a beginning of an automated fitness system, and automated fitness system will have very long-term effect. It is not only the benefit which media is talking that consumer will save 50,000 rupees, consumer may save 60,000 rupees based upon the price. It is very small thing. The other thing is we will be having employment more than 1 million. So this is the fact. We will having auto component quality much better. We can be the best auto component supplier in the world because we have spurious at present. There was no control upon the spurious components. When fitness regime will come, so we will use only the good quality of components and genuine parts will be utilized, and our total economy, if we implement this fitness system in all private vehicles, which is done across the world, so we can have 1 to 2% increase in our GDP.
Mr. Chikara, but when it comes to the benefits, because the entire policy which has been in the draft stage but has been unveiled by the minister, it says that number one, that anyone who is scrapping the old vehicle, he will get about 4 to 5% as scrap value at the scrapping center. States will be requested to give up to 25%, as I told you earlier, discount on the private vehicle while buying a new one, and for commercial vehicle it would be about 15%. On the top of that, the minister has said that he is writing an advisory to all the private companies, manufacturers, to give 5% discount. So in a way, what you are saying is right, there is a long-term benefit. But also, to make a beginning, do you think these announcements, these proposals to give some kind of discount for a new buyer because he has to sell out something in the beginning, are they going to be encouraging for them to go for new vehicles?
Definitely, it is a win-win situation that you are getting a new vehicle and government is supporting you and government is giving a subsidy. This subsidy is a boon. I mean, it is like we get, it will give much happiness that country is giving me incentive. We welcome as a society, and it is a good move, and it is a historical move also. It never government so far had announced such kind of incentive to anyone. We have some incentive for electrical vehicles, we have some incentive for auto rickshaw, taxis. So it was for limited people. But it is now open incentive for everybody. It's a very good news and we must celebrate it.
What we saw in the entire proposed policy which has been unveiled, it has three components. The first one that I talked about, the incentives in terms of getting some kind of discounts. Even Minister said that he has requested Finance Ministry to take up the issue of giving any kind of discount in the GST Council if all states agree. But there are also to discourage people to hold on to the old vehicles. There are some provisions like the renewal fee for registration certificate for private vehicles will increase. For commercial vehicles who get a fitness certificate, they will also have to pay higher. There is also a proposal that if I hold on to my old private vehicle or a commercial vehicle which is more than 15 years and 20 years, then I might have to pay a green tax. So how do you look at this entire mix? Give some incentive, give some disincentive to hold on to old vehicle. That will somehow do some kind of balancing. Do you think like that?
I have some sort of example that you are getting 5 years additional age. And 5 years additional age means you are getting 30% of additional vehicle possession. So if I have 10 lakh cost of the car and I get 5 year additional. So 5 year additional will give me benefit of 3 to 5 lakhs of rupees. If I shell out, let us say 20,000 rupees or so, or 50,000, so still I am saving more than 3 lakhs or 2 lakhs of rupees. So it is also a win-win situation. But when we are getting the vehicle restored, which is not at the cost of air pollution or safety, then what is the harm? Vehicle is also a part of family, and just scrapping vehicle without any merit, it was not a fair game.
That is
so this is a sentimental point is also there. So government has also taken care of the sentiments of the vehicle owner.
How do you look at this challenge? You talked about to have this automated fitness testing center. Now we have very few, and also this policy will also depend on how fast we put the registered vehicle scrapping centers. Because now we have only 7 or 8. We need to have so many vehicle scrapping centers across the country, and government has come out with a draft rule that how these centers have to be set up. It clearly says that it is the responsibility of the private player who will set up the center to ensure that whatever vehicle he is taking for scrapping is from the genuine owner. It is not like I can come and sell your vehicle. So how do you look at this ecosystem? How long it will take to have fitness centers, enough number of fitness centers, enough number of scrappage centers? That will take some time.
You are talking about two things. One is scrapping center and another is fitness. So first of all, I tell you about the scrapping system. Scrapping system, it is totally unregulated, unorganized. So if we do have professional people in scrapping, we will have very good ecosystem. You see, in a car, there are 5,000 components, and 5,000 components are made of steel, some aluminum, different kind of plastics. So if we count types of material, there would be more than 500. And at today practice, we are scrapping vehicle and we are burning the plastic and we are spreading the oil, grease on the earth. So it is creating everywhere pollution. If scrapping things are done in professional way, we can restore our material. We will restore our aluminium, we will restore steel, we will restore our plastics, and then so many alloys are there, some gases are there, so they can be preserved. It will not ill effect to the environment, and this is a very good business model for everybody. It is creating a lot of opportunities to the public. It is not only the scrapping of cars. Now our things like air condition, all is kabadi bazaar, so they will also be roped in, and our recycling industry will also have very big turnover in the GDP.
What you said is right. In this policy of setting up of the vehicle scrapping centers, government has very clearly said that any vehicle which comes to the scrapping center, focus should be to recover about 95% of the entire component, so that those are used. But Mr. Chikaraji, can you tell us a little bit about the fitness testing centers? Because
Yes,
automated, that is the backbone of this entire scheme.
I must say that in my professional career, more than 30 years, I have been in this automated or vehicle fitness area. So when I was with Toyota, so when quality control, this automated center kind of activity were happening in 1985, when I joined in Toyota as engineer training. So this automated fitness is giving you the nitty-gritty of the vehicle. Like we have MRI, we do have so many things, procedure for our body checking. Similarly, we can test our vehicle, what is going inside. So this automated system is the best system. It is giving actual reading. It is vehicle is moved on a simulated mode, where it provide all kind of data, even noise, vibration, harshness, and what is brake failure, what is your joint plate testing, what is your headlamp testing, what is your wheel alignment system, what is your maximum speed. Those parameters, and the dramatical things which I find is the suspension testing, because no technology, no experienced mechanic can tell you the condition of suspension. But here we find the suspension value in digital form, like your suspension is 70% okay, 50% okay, 30% okay. So it is a great system, and I admire this system, and why this fitness word was not included in our government practice. Even Sri Lanka, Nepal, Bangladesh, they are using the automated testing system, but in India we were not. So we are very much behind in in-use vehicle maintenance. So if this system comes, we will have employment more than 1 million, we will have auto good component, and everything will be fine. And it will make a discipline also, that you have a good vehicle, you will love the vehicle driving, and we will have reduction in accident on merit more than 35%. So I request that you please share it to our minister, that please expedite this fitness regime. It will be a boon, and it will give a lot of business opportunities to the society.
How long it takes, to set up a fitness testing center? Because now we have very few automated. Now we have more manual. So how long it will take? It will take 1-2 years. Because why I'm asking this question? Because the government has announced a timeline that for private vehicles it will be April 2024 to get a automated fitness test, and for commercial vehicles it is mandatory to get by June 2023. So do you think these next 2 years will be enough to put fitness testing center and also scrapping centers?
They both are parallel activity. First of all, I must emphasize that the Society of Automotive Manufacturers, they should come forward. And FADA, the dealers, because they do have infrastructure, they can add value to their existing infrastructure, and it may not take much time. Even we can establish thousands of automated testing centers in India in this year only. It may take 6 months to 1 year if the existing workshop augment their facilities. And secondly, the problem which I find that not only in this automated fitness system, and in automated driving testing system also, that land use, because state have reserved that agriculture land cannot be utilized for any other purpose. If government take decisions that like in CNG station or petrol pump, so they give the CLU to the owners of petrol pump. Similarly, if they can be incentivized, I must say within 1 year we can make 5,000 of automated fitness centers. So it depends upon government that which are the barriers which is preventing these happening to hold in India. So if they look in this area, we do have good financiers, good industries to support it. Entrepreneurs are very much, and so the startup companies. This is the best opportunity for the MSME and startup. So there is endless scope, but we have to open our barriers.
I agree. Mr. Chikara, you rightly said that there are ample opportunities and opportunities for everyone. For as a buyer, that I will have a better vehicle with a better mileage. There will be an opportunity for the industries to produce more vehicle. There will also be a new industry which is for testing fitness, automated fitness testing center, and also scrapping centers. I hope that in next couple of years we'll see a lot of more activities and old polluting cars going out of our roads. Thanks a lot, Mr. Chikara.
Thank you very much, Deepak ji.
You were listening to a discussion on vehicle scrappage policy. The participants were Anil Chikara, transport expert, and Deepak Kumar Dash, journalist. This program was produced and presented by the News Services Division of All India Radio. You can listen to it on our mobile app, News on AIR. This program is also available on our website, newsonair.com. You may email your opinion about this program at airnsdtalks@gmail.com.
This is All India Radio. In the program Spotlight, now we bring you a discussion on U.S. Defense Secretary visit to India. The participants are Anil Vadhwa, former diplomat, and Manas Bhuyan, journalist.
Welcome, Ambassador Badwa, to All India Radio. We are discussing India-US partnerships in the backdrop of today's wide-ranging talks between Defense Minister Rajnath Singh and US Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin. Sir, what is the most strident aspect of today's discussions according to you?
I think it was a very wide-ranging discussion, which was in keeping with the spirit of the current status of Indo-US relations, obviously covered a lot of ground. And if one looks at what has come out of the press conferences, etc., it's quite clear that it was not just military cooperation or defense, but also other aspects of security in the Indo-Pacific, counter-terrorism, cyber security, and 5G, etc., the military health security, sharing of information. So it's a wide range of topics which they discussed today and covering the entire gamut of the Indo-US relationship.
So in his comments, Secretary Austin has very clearly said that we discuss opportunities to elaborate the US-India major defense partnership. And in reflection of the importance that the new administration has given to India, he said that in fact, elaborating the opportunities is a major priority of the Biden-Harris administration.
Yes, I think this has been quite clear ever since the Biden administration has been in power in the United States, that it will continue to build on the relationship that India has with the United States and take this forward in new areas of cooperation. In fact, cooperation in new domains is exactly that. And from the Indian perspective, I think it is the enhancement of information sharing in the Indo-Pacific, which seems to be the most significant. But along with that, there is also movement towards making sure that there is an emphasis on defense production with manufacturing in India, which will benefit India a lot in the coming years. And the United States is keen that that relationship rests on this pillar of defense cooperation going forward.
So how do you see Defense Minister Rajnath Singh's comment that particularly in the Indo-Pacific Command and Central Command and Africa Command of the US and the Indian military?
Well, it has always been, there has been a difference in perspectives about the emphasis of cooperation in the Indo-Pacific. And it's very significant that today we had a clear enunciation of the two sides working together, not only in the Pacific Ocean, but also in the Indian Ocean. As you know, for India, the Western Indian Ocean has always been a focus along with the other parts of the Indian Ocean for our own security, and because of the fact that the Chinese have stations now themselves in Djibouti, and at the same time, Gwadar is becoming a very important hub for the Chinese Navy. Looking at it from that perspective, and the fact that India's energy security to a large extent also depends on safe passage in the Western Indian Ocean, it's very important that the two navies cooperate, and I think we're going to see much more of cooperation in that part of the oceans. We're also going to see, by the way, after the last Quad meeting, decision has been taken for interoperability exercises of the Quad with France in particular, and also in the coming months, we're going to see trilateral exercises, which will also become very important.
do you see, in fact, any future collaboration as the military coalition between the Quad members, particularly India, US, Japan, and Australia, which has been a very view by the US that, in fact, all the key players should come together and cooperate in the military sphere? So do you see India in the future joining such a coalition to basically check growing military assertiveness by China?
Well, I think, it's quite clear that from the Indian perspective, the Quad is not a military alliance. It is a cooperative framework in which these countries have come together to talk about issues which are of benefit to all of them, but not necessarily a direction in which the Quad points itself towards a military alliance, or India also would not like the Quad to take that direction. But at the same time, given the fact that there are interoperability agreements now in place between the Quad members, and the naval exercises are taking place and will take place going forward, the emphasis is on maritime domain awareness, interoperability, and at the same time making sure that the oceans are free from interference so that normal trade and commerce can proceed without any hindrance. And
Right.
obviously, India would like to see a peaceful settlement of disputes going forward in the region, which has been the emphasis of the Quad as well.
Would you like to just, list some of the areas where the two countries are expected to expand their overall cooperation?
If you look at statements which have come out from the two sides, of course, the shared values of democracy, pluralism, and commitment to a rules-based order is the focus between the two sides. But Indo-US, how to take the Indo-US strategic cooperation forward, how to consolidate on defense sales and technology transfer, and also consolidate on the Indo-Pacific strategy has always been a stated aim of the US administration, especially after the Biden administration has taken charge. From the Indian perspective, though, it will have to be a much more broad-based agenda. And India would also like to lay some stress on cooperation in cybersecurity, the supply chain security initiatives that have been talked about in the context of the Quad, and counterterrorism as well. But most importantly, as I already told you, I think India has been designated as a major defense partner by the United States in 2016, and India would like to make sure that this cooperation, the defense production aspect is emphasized going forward. The defense trade and cooperation in new domains is something India would like to see, and would also like to consolidate upon the areas of cooperation in technology transfer that we've been talking about over the past few years.
Is the defense and security partnership between India and US going to significantly expand under the Biden administration, or it will be a steady kind of a flow that we will see that was witnessed under the Trump administration also?
So I think the defense and security cooperation has been expanding steadily over the years. If you look at the cumulative figure today, $21 billion worth of arms and ammunition and technology have been transferred from the United States to India. Some of these are very critical. And India, of course, has been emphasizing on the technology transfer aspect quite a bit. So that includes expanded military exercises, also includes joint training of international peacekeeping troops, making sure that refueling arrangements between the two navies are in shape. And that is the result of the three basic agreements that we've signed with the United States, which are essentially the Logistics Exchange Memorandum of Agreement, then the Communications Compatibility and Security Agreement, and also in 2020, the Basis Exchange on Cooperation Agreement, the BECA, which gives us the geospatial intelligence which the United States has been sharing with us. So going forward, I think for the security of India, these agreements are quite useful. How to operationalize them and to make sure that the exchange of information is consolidated is a very important aspect for India. Technology transfer and arms production in India itself under the rubric of Atmanirbhar Bharat is also very important. The United States has come to realize that that is the way to go forward and is willing to now talk about it in a much broader perspective. So all in all, I think we are going to see, a lot of progress going forward on this aspect.
There has been apprehensions that the US administration may impose some sanctions on India for our procurement of a batch of S-400 air defense missiles from Russia, and both sides are engaged in this issue. And a very senior Senate member before Secretary Austin's visit to India, had sent a letter to him asking him to raise this issue with India. So do you see any friction points in overall military and defense cooperation between India and US, considering India's procurement of arms and ammunition from Russia, as Russia has been one of our very old and trusted supplier of military weapons and defense platforms?
So India would not like to have any curbs in the autonomy that it has in terms of its determination from where it procures its arms and ammunition, etc., and technology. And as you rightly said, Russia has been a very important partner for India in the past, and India would like to retain that autonomy of decision making. Of course, under CATSA, the United States has been raising the issue of the sales of S-400 to India, but that's an ongoing process. Currently, as you know, one installment has already been paid to the Russian side, and going forward, India would like to impress upon the United States that any curves on its own decision making could adversely affect the whole relationship, defense relationship with the United States. So obviously, if at all this issue has to be raised, it will not be raised publicly. It will have to be discussed between the two sides in an in-depth manner. And I'm certain that the two sides will be able to overcome this difference, because there's also a provision of a waiver under the CATSA provisions under US law. And that is something that India would be looking forward to going forward.
Several US defense majors have expressed their apprehension about safety of top secret US military technology in India. So they have been seeking some kind of protection from leakage of such technology and information. So do you think, in fact, that both sides will address this issue and ensure that there is no hiccups in our cooperation in production and manufacturing of military platforms and defense equipment?
So whenever, there are agreements of this kind, there are secrecy agreements which are signed up front. And it is also built into such agreements that the details, the equipment or technology would not be shared with other parties. So that's something which regularly happens. And in terms of the original equipment manufacturers entering India and making use of the new FDI policy that has come about in India, I think that is something which will be also inbuilt into the defense production processes in India. So I don't think there should be too much of worries on that score as far as the United States is concerned. India will work with all partners and ensure that their own technology secrets and whatever they want to preserve would be preserved through agreements that will be signed in an appropriate manner. I'm sure the issue of S-400 sales, etc., would fall in a similar category, where the United States would like India to buy its own equipment rather than buy from Russia. But there will be similar instances going forward. If India has to keep a strategic autonomy, it will have to make sure that it assures all its partners that their military technologies, secret and other details are kept within the bilateral purview.
Sir, in fact, our defense minister also made a very important point in his media statement that, in fact, both sides have acknowledged that they have put in place 3 foundational agreements that you also mentioned, LEMOA, CONCASA, and BECA. So now they are discussing steps to, realize the full potential of these 3 foundational agreements. So what kind of specific expansion of the cooperation you see, sir?
Yes, I think these are 3 very, very important foundational agreements. We have not really seen the results of these agreements so far because they've not been used to the extent that they can be. But looking at it from any perspective, I think they all have a lot of potential in terms of the range of facilities that can be enjoyed between the 2 armed forces, whether it's the Navy or the Air Force or the Army. In terms of information exchange, that's the first priority. That means the more information you have, the better you are. And in terms of logistics exchange, refueling, replenishment, and use of each other's facility is extremely important in today's context. And thirdly, in terms of information warfare technologies and based information, of course, that is something which will take the cooperation to the next level. So I think that's what the 2 sides would be discussing and probably take this forward through working groups in the coming months.
How do you see, sir, the bilateral initiative getting traction in overall comprehensive strategy of ensuring a free and inclusive Indo-Pacific?
If you look at the last Quad meeting, the agenda and the agreements that have come out, three things stand out quite clearly. One is that the Quad is not unidirectional. It is not a security alliance, first of all. Secondly, it has agreed to now diversify and cooperate in some very important fields. The Resilient Supply Chains Initiative was something that was talked about between three countries in September, which is Australia, India, and Japan. But now talking about new technologies and critical minerals and how to take our cooperation forward in those areas is a very important aspect. There's also climate change, which has been brought in as a subject which is facing all countries of the region.
Thank you so very much.
Thank you very much.
You were listening to a discussion on U.S. Defense Secretary visit to India. The participants were Anil Vadva, former diplomat, and Manas Bhuyan, journalist. This program was produced and presented by the News Services Division of All India Radio. You can listen to it on our mobile app News on AIR. This program is also available on our website newsonair.com. You may email your opinion about this program at airnsdtalks@gmail.com.
This is All India Radio. In the program Spotlight, we bring you a discussion on World Water Day Catch the Rain campaign. The participants are Mukul Sanwal, environmentalist, and Deepak Kumar Dash, journalist.
As all of us know, today is the World Water Day, and our Prime Minister Narendra Modi today launched Catch the Rain campaign across the country as a part of the Jal Shakti Abhiyan, which has been one of the flagship schemes of government since it came back to power. Mr. Mukul, if you can throw us some light on the importance of this particular program of Catch the Rain, Jal Shakti Abhiyan, and also today Prime Minister talked about this MOU signing between states for the Betwa river linking program.
This program is significant for a number of reasons. The most important reason is that the prosperity of India throughout civilization has depended on the monsoon. And the monsoon was conserved in our civilization to the extent possible. In the Himalayas, it was the trees and the tarai that acted as a sponge to retain the rainwater and release it slowly. That led to the immense agriculture potential and production in the Ganges basin. All the traditional empires of India were located on the Ganga. It is when the Muslims came from the west that they settled down on the first river they came across, and that was the Yamuna. So there is always more water in the Ganga and the area between the Ganga and the Himalayas. Similarly, in South India, if you go back 1,000 years, the Kakatiya dynasty, Vijayanagar dynasty, the most important dynasties of South India, they conserved rainwater through a series of channels, lakes, and that led to their agricultural prosperity, that led to their cities being provided with sufficient water, and disuse with the British. The British focused more on cash crops, and so they want more water, and then they went into the canal system. And that engineering tradition continues to this day. And I think the most important element of the Jal Shakti Abhiyan of Prime Minister is to conserve the water where it falls. I think the first time somebody has said at the highest level that the issue is not water scarcity. The issue is not management of water. That is the Western thinking. The issue for India is to conserve the monsoon rainfall. Second point is that in no country of the world do you have two monsoons. Our entire geographic location, the location of the Himalayas, meant that we had two monsoons regularly every year, which enabled us to take 2 to 3 crops without flow irrigation and the agricultural prosperity of the country. I think the third element is that traditionally in India, the local development was to dig wells. This was a tradition in North India. You can take it back to Sher Shah Suri, to Akbar, to the British. Wells were important. And we continue to focus on wells without realizing that the groundwater table is going down because of excessive extraction from the small pumps, rural electrification. So we needed a new policy. Similarly, in the South India, the bandis went into disuse. You go to Khajuraho, you find that every temple has a bandi which stored rainwater. That fell into disuse. So without the recharge, the wells did not have water. And so what did we do? We declared those areas as drought-prone areas. And we have examples of villages like Zalegaon Sindhi, where village community conserved rainwater and was able to grow not only crops but trees And if you look at it from far, it's like an oasis of green. So it is possible. It was possible in the past, and that is the only way a large population can sustain itself for agricultural production, for urbanization, for industry. In terms of conserving the monsoon, no other country in the West has this kind of natural phenomena. And we borrowed the ideas from the West. I think it is to the Prime Minister's credit to shift the focus to our own heritage, to our own situation, and come out with our own solutions. Now, if you look at the details of this, that he is also linking up science with this. He's saying we will monitor the recharge capacity through satellite usage. It is this kind of thinking where you are not only telling the people that you do what is in your benefit, directly for your benefit, but also linking the traditional knowledge, which again has never happened in the past in the scale it is happening now, the traditional knowledge with modern science. This is probably going to be the most important program for the future of the country.
Mr. Mukul, you are completely right when you said that we have a lot of dependence on groundwater and we have been extracting it like anything in states like Punjab, other places where we are going for more cash crop. So there is a need to give it back to the earth. And Prime Minister actually talked about that why we need to do it, primarily to ensure the security of our next generation. We are not doing it for just our life. And said another point, that the way he has linked the entire program from per drop more crop to Namami Ganga, then Jal Jeevan Mission, which is again major flagship program of the government to provide water to every rural household by 2024. And those things can happen only when we catch the water.
Cleaning of the Ganga, you said, very important. Why is the Ganga polluted? Because urban pollution, industrial pollution. But if you look at the science of pollution, water pollution, it is the amount of outside material that goes into the water and the volume of the water. Real problem that we are facing is untreated sewage, chemicals are being put inside, but when the volume of water has come down, that dilution does not take place and the pollution level goes up. So you need to do both. You need to check the flow of pollution into the river, but you also need to increase the volume of the river. See what is happening today in Delhi. Water is coming from the Dhaka Nangal Dam to drinking water supply of Delhi. The Jamna itself is not sufficient. The Ravi and the Byas have to provide water to Delhi. So that is not sustainable. As urban population increases, we cannot sustain ourselves unless we conserve the monsoon.
I think that's what Prime Minister talked about when he said water connectivity.
Linked with that is his idea of small scale interlinking of rivers as well. Again, the geography of India is such. Certain rivers which are close to each other have a lot of water, others do not have water. So it is possible to have small canals to cut across and link them. Yes, environmentalists are complaining that this will create a problem. But then even when the Ganga Canal was built, from Hardwar right down to Narora, the same complaints took place. We are more aware of those problems. Science has increased capacity. And if scientific monitoring is done in a proper way, it is possible to have a balance between the flow of water and the fauna, flora, and then environmental issues. In that sense, it becomes a design issue to deal with dirt purposes. But ensure that water is not wasted is not only at the level of the human being, but also has to be seen at the level of the region and the country as a whole, for overall prosperity. That is the vision the Prime Minister is laying out for us.
Prime Minister also said that rapid development is possible only with the water security and water connectivity. How do you look at this campaign becoming a success? Because we saw how, Swachh Bharat mission became a huge success only when there is participation of people, not just government officials. This Jal Jeevan mission also aims at doing the same thing, but as of now, it is primarily, driven by DM, CM, local officials. How do we involve local people? As you rightly said, in place like Delhi or in other cities, you need to have your own system of catching the rain and going for rain harvesting in a big way. How do you look at people's participation playing a bigger role to make it a huge success?
This is one program which directly affects the local person. The program is not about bringing water to the village, as the words of the Prime Minister. Where it falls, we will conserve it. So it is not bringing water to the village through a pipe, but it is conserving the rainfall. And if you look at the rainfall data, we have rainfall except for some places in the Thar Desert. You have some rainfall in every little part of India. And if that can be conserved, it is sufficient. Because people have got used to living with less water in those areas. The problem is that rainwater conservation was not done. Take the case of the Himalayas. Every village had a spring. As time went on, population increased, deforestation took place, the spring started drying. But then the solution we provided, and this is something like 50 years ago, We provided an engineering solution and said, we will pump water from the river and we will distribute it through pipes. That has not been totally successful because there was no people's participation in it. The people were waiting for the water to come to them. In this case, the government is funding them to conserve the water that falls in their village. Yes, those villages which are water scarcity, a different program will have to be. But where there is rainfall, and as I said, almost the entire country has some rainfall or the other, except for a few pockets. And even they have occasional rainfall. People living in Jaisalmer, you had a fort which has a series of water tanks to conserve the rainfall. Because this program directly affects the people, they will do a good job.
How do you look at the urban problem? You rightly talked about that fluent going from urban areas to the rivers like Ganga, Yamuna, all those big rivers. And we need to put a check on them by putting, STPs of adequate capacity. But what do we see in urban areas, unfortunately, in past several decades, that we have gone for more and more concretization, roads are becoming thicker and thicker. So entire rain that a city like Delhi, Calcutta, Chennai, any city is getting, it's all actually going out of the city, getting into the drains and rivers. There we have not been making huge success, despite the fact that many municipalities have come out with the ideas of mandatory rainwater harvesting system. How to deal with this entire issue of urban areas?
You see, the urban problem is different to the rural problem. Rural problem, the persons are more self-reliant. They depend on themselves. Throughout they have depended mainly on themselves. In the cities, the middle class has got used to depending on the government, and therefore, even though the legislation says that the building plan will not be passed unless there is water harvesting arrangement, it has not been followed. It is unfortunate. It is not being followed because the middle class knows that water will come. And Delhi is a very good example. Even the AAP government is not having a campaign to look at the water harvesting arrangements of each house. And big clusters have to have even stronger water harvesting arrangements as part of legislation. They are not pushing for that. They are pushing for more water from the Dhaka Dam. So that is part of the politics of the issue. And gradually, I think, once the rural problem is sorted out, I think the Prime Minister will have to move into this too, with his authority, with his vision, to say, look, now that we have taken care of this large extent in the rural areas, now it is time for the urban areas to take this in a more serious way, because ultimately it is an urban problem. We use more water than we need. Take the example of the shower and the bucket. Traditionally, Indians have had a bath with a bucket. Now we have started using showers. We have not only started using showers, but high-pressure showers. You enjoy a bath. It is part of your lifestyle. It is many times the water that is needed, much more water than you need to clean your body, but that is part of our lifestyle. So the next round, I think the Prime Minister will have to get into this and say, look, we need to change this. If there is water scarcity in the country, and it is not only in this country, it will be in every country as time goes on. This is part of the sustainability of the planet. And we need to look at our own lifestyles. We need to have, say, two pipelines. If you are watering your lawn or the park, it should be wastewater. Water is very cheap in our country. If you value water, if you raise the price of water, people will be more conscious. Electricity, there is some consciousness is coming. We are looking at star rating. I want to buy something which will have energy efficiency because my electricity bill is very high. Similarly, for water, we will have to do something. And gradually, the mindset will change.
Mr. Mukul, what you said is very, very convincing that after the rural area is done, there is a need to focus on urban areas. And it is very right that, it's urban people per capita consumption is much more higher than rural areas. If I take you back to some of the proposals that government have been putting for a very long time, even in the new policies, they're saying that every housing society should have, like dual water supply system that you talked about, that the gardening should be done by treated wastewater. But I think the examples should be set by the government. If we see Delhi, only in NDMC areas you find recycled wastewater is being used for gardening. But in other areas, you don't find it. So the thing is that the example has to be set by government itself.
Again, the part of the problem is what we took from the outside world. Take the case of Delhi again. We got the Jal board as a model from the World Bank or a Western model, whose job is to supply water. Their job is not to manage water in a sense that, look, to tell the household that, look, I will supply limited quantity, rest you will have to get from the rainwater. That is not part of their mandate. That somebody else is doing. Gradually we will have to change. The Jal board needs to start looking at water in a more holistic manner and just not the pipe supply, but also the linking with the rainwater. Since they are giving a pipe water connection to every household, It should become their responsibility to check the rainwater harvesting arrangement of that household. Is there a pit? Is all the water from the roof going into the pit? The critical point in the rainwater harvesting is not having a pit where water will go down into the ground, but the water from the roof should be channeled by pipes into that pit. It is the area of the roof, the water that falls on it, that needs to be conserved.
Mr. Mukul, this is a very good beginning that government has made. As you rightly said, it has to be a huge public participation program. After good success from rural areas, we need to shift to urban areas. Let's hope that every individual, whether it is a government servant, private individual, government agencies or municipal bodies, all of us understand that water is life. We need to save and conserve it. Thanks a lot, Mr. Mukul, for joining us.
Thank you.
You were listening to a discussion on World Water Day Catch the Rain campaign. The participants were Mukul Sanwal, environmentalist, and Deepak Kumar Dash, journalist. This program was produced and presented by the News Services Division of All India Radio. You can listen to it on our mobile app, News on AIR. This program is also available on our website, newsonair.com. You may email your opinion about this program at airnsdtalks@gmail.com.
This is All India Radio. In the program Spotlight, now we bring you an interview with Dr. Gauhar Rizvi, International Affairs Advisor to the Prime Minister of Bangladesh. Interviewer is Rajesh Kumar Jha, Prasar Bharati Special Correspondent, Dhaka.
Today, he will be talking about the various aspects of India-Bangladesh relations in the context of the forthcoming visit of Prime Minister Narendra Modi to take part in the birth centenary celebrations of Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujib, the Golden Jubilee celebration of the liberation of Bangladesh, and the 50 years of the establishment of diplomatic ties between India and Bangladesh. Let me begin by asking you about the current status of the India-Bangladesh relations and the challenges you see and the prospects of the relations in the near future.
This is an extraordinary happy occasion, not only for Bangladesh, because while we celebrate the centenary of Bangabandhu's birthday, we are also remind ourselves of the historic role that the people, government, and the armed forces of India played during our liberation war. So in all rounds way, while we call it our centenary celebration, I want to emphasize that in many respects, it is our joint celebration. When you ask me about the relationship between the two countries, in a way, Bangladesh and India relationship is the most natural relationship and necessary relationship that you can imagine. We have a shared history, shared culture, language, and with this shared experience, coupled with India's historic assistance to us in 1971, it's a sort of a bond that few countries can proclaim. So in that respect, our good relation is not a question to ponder.
It is indeed true, sir, that the relationship between India and Bangladesh is a story of a glorious relationship that is rooted in the 1971 joint sacrifice of both the countries. But any great relationship needs to be nurtured and energized as the realities of the world change. So in the last 50 years, much water has flown through the Ganges, through the rivers, and the relationship needs to be energized and given new impetus. What do you think are the areas in which the relationship needs to be energized and given strength?
Following the assassination of the father of the nation in 1975, it was followed by a period of more than 2 decades of either military or military-backed regime. During that period, it is true that Bangladesh-India relations had become frosty. But if you exclude that period, and of course, I must say it is a long period and it has still left some of its legacies there. The period 1972 to 1975 was the closest period during which India and Bangladesh worked together. And the confidence that we had in each other was demonstrated that the Indian army which came to help and liberate Bangladesh left within months at the request of Bangabandhu. Just shows how much confidence the two countries had. Bangabandhu started establishing relations with India all across the board, from trade to borders to investment, exchange of goods. And that very constructive period, which was very important for our formative phase, was disrupted, as I said, in 1975. However, our current Prime Minister, Sheikh Hasina, when she came to power for the second time in 2009, in the first government in 1996, she very amicably resolved the Ganges problem, which had been persisting between the two countries, not from 71, but right from 1947, from Pakistan era. And our Prime Minister, with the help with the Indian government, found a solution which is mutually beneficial. And that agreement is still working very effectively. With her return to power in 2009, she made India as her priority. And her instructions to us was, we want to resolve all issues across the board. And that's precisely what happened. We have resolved the problem of enclaves, exchange of enclaves, which was persisting since 1947. We now have a trading relationship with India where Bangladesh can export duty-free, quota-free, almost all goods except alcohol and arms to India. We have resolved all our lingering border area demarcation problems. We have solved adverse possession problem. The Teen Biga issue has now resolved forever. And we have then started building up relationship in a genuine interdependence sense. Because if you look at India and Bangladesh, our economy is shaped by our geography. We have a shared border of 2,400 kilometers. We depend on each other, we benefit from each other, and it is a mutually beneficial relationship. We are both looking to find our place with economic development, our place in the world. And to achieve that, we need to work together.
One of the recent studies by the World Bank, which says that despite the fact that India-Bangladesh trade has grown substantially and currently around $9 billion of trade between the two countries, yet there is an unrealized potential, according to the World Bank estimate, of $10 billion between the two countries. That there is a possibility that improved connectivity between the two countries, the trade could go up by $10 billion. What are the things that you think both countries should be doing?
Rajesh ji, not only I agree with the findings of the World Bank, I would like to say 10 billion trade is an underestimate. The potentials are huge. What has already happened, duty-free export to Bangladesh, our export to India is picking up. Although it is true that balance of trade is largely in favor of India. There we would argue that while it is one indicator we should be aware of, there are many ways in which we can overcome that. And one of the easiest ways that we are doing is encouraging Indians to invest in Bangladesh using our large labor pool, skilled, semi-skilled labor force, extremely disciplined workforce, to use Bangladesh as a manufacturing base and then importing it duty-free into India for the Indian market. It benefits both sides and further enhance cooperation. And you are absolutely right about connectivity. If I were to say, what is the flagship policy of our Prime Minister? From day one, she made regional, sub-regional connectivity as her priority. We have opened up our frontiers. We have allowed India to link with Northeast through our territory. We are opening up all those linkages, railway, road, that has been disrupted during the Indo-Pakistan War of 1965. Those are being restored. We are trading in power. We are buying electricity from India. We have developed coastal shipping between the two countries. We have opened up our inland river so that ships can go to the different parts of Bangladesh. So all these things added together, coupled with expansion of Bangladesh's own industrial base, we should be able to take advantage of the huge Indian market of nearly 1.4 billion people.
Indeed, the possibilities of trade between India and Bangladesh are huge, and being so closely placed and geographically, I think, linked together, the possibilities are huge, and we are only realizing those potentials just now, and I can see that in the near future things would go up. I would like to ask you one related question, sir. Recently, Bangladesh has graduated from the LDC status, and in the coming 5 years or so, it would be coming out of the LDC status. How do you think it is going to affect the trade relations between India and Bangladesh, in the sense that certain concessions, etc., that are available now between countries and certain agreements that may be in place between the two countries? What do you think is going to be the impact of this?
we are celebrating double graduation, LDC to developing, and also from lower income to middle income. This is a huge achievement. Huge achievement not only economically, but it is also in terms of dignity. We feel very proud to tell the world that many countries, many leaders of the world had written off Bangladesh from the possibility of economically surviving. It was a question of eternal dependence. Let me just tell you, in 1972, we needed almost 100% of our development budget was either development assistance or loan. Today, 95% of our development budget comes from our own resources. We have still about 5% of development assistance, but given our economic vibrancy, we can now access loans from multilateral lending bodies. We can borrow money from international capital market. So in many senses, we are no longer dependent as we were on special or privileged access to market. Our economies, our industries, our exports have become competitive. And in a way, all this is going to do for us is to make us try to be more competitive. And with competition, our quality, our product, our own ability to supply will also improve. I also should say, this does not in any way impact Bangladesh-India relations. Change of status is more to do with EU, with North America and other countries of the world. As far as India is concerned, we have this very special relationship of duty-free access to the Indian territory, and at the same time, as our capacity develops, as our own industrial expansion takes place, from being a predominantly agricultural society in 1971-72, today we are largely a trading country, and that's where we will be heading in the years to come.
That is something very important that you're talking about. Going back to the earlier thing that you suggested, sir, about the need for Indian investment coming to Bangladesh. I know that recently an Indian company has announced that it will be investing in the making of electric vehicles in Bangladesh. There are a couple of big power projects running in Bangladesh and a few other things. What are the areas where you think Indian investment can come profitably for both the countries and invest?
I would like to talk about both Indian investment in Bangladesh and also joint Indo-Bangladesh ventures. As I said, Bangladesh offers an ideal opportunity for Indian investors to manufacture goods for domestic consumption in India. Indian investment will come. And as you said, we have powered some of your top industries have invested in the field of power, textile, garments, as you said, electric car manufacturing, batteries, in any number of things where India has advantage. What is also very interesting is, while a lot of Indian managers are helping us in our management of our factories, etc. Likewise, not well known that Bangladeshi companies are helping manage in some of the Indian ports. Because we have a lot of experience in that area. We have always been a riverine society. Much of the ships that ply between India and Bangladesh are Bangladeshi ships. So we also have a way in which we can contribute to enhancing trade. The transshipment from Akhauda to Agartala is enormously opening up for Indian market. At the same time, it is opening up Bangladeshi market. But going forward are the real opportunities. Those have to be created. They don't exist immediately. We need to create those opportunities through strategic planning and strategic investment. We need to look at the comparative advantage of each country, each society, and then decide where to invest. I have already talked about the labor comparative advantage of Bangladesh. Today, none of our factories can complain about want of regular power supply. Our roads, ports, and rails are improving. And India is playing a magnificent role through its line of credit in helping us to build some of these infrastructure. Most recently, we had the bridge, Moitri Setu. This shows you how we are opening up. We have allowed free transit in every direction. India has also come forward. It has agreed that power trade can take place and power can come from Bhutan to Bangladesh through India without interruption. There are huge possibilities of developing hydroelectricity power in northeast India. But if you produce electricity in Northeast India, there is no demand for it. The demand is elsewhere in India. And the only way that India can evacuate the power that it generates in Northeast India is through Bangladesh. That is where we talk about joint venture opportunity. We would also like to invest in those joint ventures so that we are also assured. We are already working very well advanced in a tripartite power project between India, Bangladesh and Bhutan. We will jointly develop it and then we will buy back according to our needs. We need to develop an integrated communication system. We need to make all our rivers navigable so ships can fly without any problem. So by developing this infrastructure, we will fully benefit from our proximity.
Thank you, Dr. Gauhar Rizvi, for talking extensively about so many issues of the relationship between India and Bangladesh. Thank you, sir.
You were listening to an interview with Dr. Gauhar Rizvi, International Affairs Advisor to the Prime Minister of Bangladesh. The interviewer was Rajesh Kumar Jha, Prasar Bharati Special Correspondent, Dhaka. This program was produced and presented by the News Services Division of All India Radio. You can listen to it on our mobile app News on AIR. This program is also available on our website newsonair.com.
This is All India Radio. In the program Spotlight, now we bring you an interview of India's High Commissioner to Bangladesh, Vikram Doraiswami. Interviewer is Rajesh Kumar Jha, Prasar Bharati Special Correspondent, Dhaka.
Bangladesh occupies a key position in India's Act East and Neighbourhood First policy. The relationship between India and Bangladesh have been historic and strong ever since 1971, when India extended a great support to the liberation war of Bangladesh. Bangladesh is celebrating the birth centenary of its founding father, Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, the golden jubilee of its liberation from Pakistan, and 50 years of the establishment of diplomatic ties with India. Prime Minister Narendra Modi is going to visit Bangladesh to take part in the celebrations. Sir, India-Bangladesh relations have been exemplary, a model of relationship for the neighbours. How do you look at the current phase of relationship between the two countries?
As you correctly said, the relationship has always been of extremely high priority for India. It is in fact one of our most prized and most important relationships. So from that standpoint, it is a particular pleasure to be able to say that India-Bangladesh ties are at their highest ever level since the 1970s. We can see this in the way in which there is complete political consensus in India of the importance of Bangladesh, the importance of a strong relationship with Bangladesh, and the importance of developing this relationship further. Our government, since 2014, has put in a lot of effort in this relationship. And indeed, Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina, for her part, and her government, has, since she came to power for the second and the current ongoing period, has consistently prioritized the steady improvement of bilateral relations. It is not recognized enough how much the relationship has changed. It is today a relationship in which there is great comfort in being able to recognize each other's importance and special position in our respective foreign policies. It is also a fact that we have resolved issues that have plagued us for decades, and in few other countries can you find equivalent examples. For instance, resolution of our land boundary. The actual effort to find and transfer pieces of land and to resolve issues of enclaves is unique. Very few countries have ever done this anywhere in the world. So this kind of thing is something that has given the relationship new strength. I would also want to include here the fact that India and Bangladesh are among the very few countries in the world, certainly in Asia, that have actually peacefully resolved even a maritime boundary dispute through a tribunal process, with both countries accepting the fact that the judgment would be binding on both countries. We have done things that are unique and I think not always fully recognized in our own countries, leave alone the world. So to answer your question in one phrase, when our leadership talks about this being a golden age of India-Bangladesh relationship, a Shonali Adhyaya, as they say in Bangla, I think that's absolutely correct.
So Prime Minister Narendra Modi would be visiting Bangladesh to take part in these three historic celebrations that are going to take place. So how do you look at the importance of the visit of the Prime Minister to Bangladesh on this occasion?
Well, that's, I think, a very specific and a very important question. Look, we need to remember that the COVID pandemic is still going on. In most parts of the world, high-level interactions have more or less dried up. Everybody carries out high-level business and indeed most kinds of business virtually these days. And yet, this will be the first visit of our Prime Minister outside India since the pandemic broke out. It shows the priority that our government attaches to the relationship with Bangladesh and these very important celebratory occasions. It also shows the fact that Bangladesh has reached out at the level of the Prime Minister to invite our Prime Minister to be the chief guest at this very, very important national day. 26th of March is Bangladeshi National Day, and our Prime Minister will be the sole chief guest, is a clear sign of the mutual regard that the two leaders hold each other in. So I think it is a highly significant moment that shows to the world and to our own people the priority we attach to each other. So yes, I would say that this is a very unique, very special moment.
India-Bangladesh ties are multidimensional. They stretch from trade to commerce to connectivity to so many other aspects of the relationship between the two countries. But what are the specific areas which you think are important at this point of time, so far as the Bangladesh-India relations are concerned?
We need to recognize that we are each other's biggest land neighbors. In any relationship that is so intense, so connected historically, culturally, even today as economies, and it's only getting more connected, the world is moving to far higher levels of integration for benefit. Even the COVID pandemic showed us that there is value in nearshoring production chains and inshoring production chains. So I'd say the relationship should really focus on identifying our strengths, working together to build on these strengths, and recognizing how best we can leverage the unique opportunities we offer each other. Let me explain that a bit. Bangladesh is today, if you look at its location, it is so well positioned to be the fulcrum of the trade and connectivity opportunities, not just for India and its northeast, but also for Nepal, for Bhutan, and even indeed for the Bay of Bengal area. So if we consider Bangladesh's USP, its unique selling proposition, to be as a strategic hub, to be a high-quality producer of goods and an integrator of transportation systems, then I think the relationship could grow very rapidly in the direction of creating a sort of an irreversible economic partnership between us.
Recently, External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar was here in Bangladesh in connection with the preparation for the Prime Minister's visit and to discuss the bilateral issues. During his interaction with the media, he said that for the next 2 decades, the area that he sees to be the main thrust of India-Bangladesh relations are connectivity and people-to-people ties. Now, connectivity issues between India and Bangladesh have been growing. There have been so many new things. And people-people ties also quite closely linked to the connectivity issue. So how do you look at this issue, sir? The new challenges to connectivity, the new opportunities that exist between India and Bangladesh, the Maitri Setu that has been inaugurated, and so many other things. Could you please tell us about the new initiatives on connectivity and people-to-people ties that is also linked to it?
Thank you. That connects up quite neatly with what I just said. So let me expand a bit on that idea. Now, if you see, till 1965, much of the connectivity between parts of Bengal on our own side also went through Bangladesh. As many as 6 railway crossings operated to move goods and people across what was originally one integrated region. After 1965, all of this connectivity was lost. What we have done with the strong vision of Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina and the determined direction of our government under Prime Minister Modi has been to rebuild much of this connectivity. So out of the 6 cross-border crossings that existed on the railway side till the 1960s, we have restored 5. The 5th was just restored in December last year, connecting in the North Bengal area between Chilahati and Haldibari. The 6th one in the Assam area between Shahbazpur and Kulaura is still work in progress. We hope by sometime next year it should be done. And we're building new rail connectivity, which will also connect up between Agartala and Akhoda, which will then give us seamless connectivity between the Chattogram-Dhaka line and also India into the northeast. So that's just railways. There are projects in place to connect up and improve the quality of roads that run from Benapole all the way to Bhanga, which is on one side of the Padda River, where the Mava Expressway is coming up. There are projects to upgrade roads in the northeast connective area. You mentioned Maitri Setu. The road that will connect it beyond from Ramgarh on the Bangladesh side towards Chattogram needs upgradation. We've offered a line of credit for that. The Japanese are also offering support for the bridges on that road. So the idea is to build the hard infrastructure of connectivity in terms of road and railways, and through that to facilitate the movement of goods and services, but also people. We have 2 non-stop trains running from Khulna to Kolkata and Dhaka to Kolkata, where we provide end-to-end clearances. So customs and immigration are done at the ends, not in the borders. If you can do that for people, why not for goods? In particular, this is needed because we have motor vehicles agreements between India and Nepal and India and Bhutan, but not between India and Bangladesh. So this 4-nation MVA will increase that possible connectivity. Bangladesh has also indicated its interest in joining the India-Myanmar-Thailand trilateral highway, which would also involve the opportunity for connectivity through our northeast. We also are working on inland waterways. Historically, if you see, during the medieval period and thereafter during even the British colonial period, the rivers served as the main channels of transportation of goods from the northeast and from the mountains. Now, that has actually died out. And making rivers usable again by cross-border routes has been one of the big focuses of our government. And Bangladesh side has also been extremely cooperative on this. So the net result has been that we are now, through joint dredging exercises, some of which we're doing on grant basis, through projects to build connective infrastructure like container terminal at Ashuganj River Port, we are close to a point where we can look at rivers being used for commercial purposes. Human creativity and business will lead the rest, provided we create the opportunities for them. Which brings me to a second part that is equally necessary, along with the upgradation of ports, roads, rail, river infrastructure, and even airports. What we really need to look at is the regulatory systems that connect all of this. The World Bank did a study recently, which was published last week, and I participated in the release of that study, which pointed out that the India-Bangladesh border is a thick border, which essentially means that regulatory processes on both sides are so stringent that it is very difficult for goods and services to move across. Difficulty, in other words, means more time. More time means more money lost. More money lost means that the cost of trade or the cost that is attached to the movement of goods is passed on to consumers. So it means higher cost of goods and services for the consumers in Bangladesh or in India, as the case may be. Now, this makes no sense. We really need to have a more business-friendly approach to it. We need to multiply the number of ports through which goods can move through. We need to increase the integration between customs systems. We need to look at ways in which we create multimodal nodes and hubs of goods transshipment. So I think what the minister was trying to say was that if we get the connectivity picture right, and it is already beginning to come into place on both sides, immediately be able to see direct economic benefits from this.
Yes, indeed, sir. Foreign Secretary Harshvardhan Shringla recently spoke about energy cooperation, the connectivity of energy in the sub-region of India, Bangladesh, Myanmar and all. A very important part of the cooperation in this region, and India is working on this. But one of the most important and significant things that has happened recently is the COVID cooperation, the cooperation between India and Bangladesh on the issue of COVID. At a time of such a huge humanitarian crisis at the global level, when the challenges for India were no less grave, India was able to supply a very generous amount of vaccine to Bangladesh. Subsequent to the last year's video conferencing called by the Prime Minister of India with SAARC leaders, there has been so many important activities that have taken place between India and Bangladesh. Do you think it can serve as a template for future in terms of such natural crisis or humanitarian crisis between countries of this region and specifically between India and Bangladesh?
Yes, I think you're right. If you look at it, I think at the outbreak of the COVID crisis last March, just about a year ago, it became fairly clear that this was not going to be one of those challenges that each country could just close down the doors and survive on its own. We were going to also need to find ways of cooperating with each other, specifically in a subcontinent like ours, which is so closely connected. Our borders are, as I said, so extensive. People-to-people ties are so strong. So it made sense for us to work together to combat a pandemic like the world had never seen before through unprecedented new levels of cooperation. The Prime Minister's initiative to put together a SAARC leaders conference, which took place in March last year, and in that to come up with the idea of SAARC fund for COVID, which each nation would operate on its own but set aside money for those resources. Through the year also we managed, even with our own challenges, to ensure that some amount of support could be provided to our neighbors in terms of testing kits, masks, PPE kits, even medicine, the supply of HCQ, when it was seen as one of the ways in which COVID could be at least managed. All these were signs of our consistent effort to maintain partnerships between us in our neighborhood during the COVID phase. As we moved towards the delivery of finished vaccines, we also started work to prepare the ground in India, but also with our partners through online experience sharing platforms where we talked about how we were approaching the challenge of inoculating hundreds of millions of people, how we were coping with the challenge of ensuring cold chains for the movement of drugs, access to quality syringes and needles, the totality of the challenge. When you think about it, these are huge administrative challenges. And recognizing that these are similar challenges that our neighbors were going to face, we worked together with all of them to share knowledge, to see what they had in mind, and to see if we could replicate each other's best practices. So this practice has also happened over the last several months. As the vaccines then were rolled out, Bangladesh was one of the first countries to receive not only their own contracted purchase of vaccines, but even before that, a tranche of 2 million doses of vaccines. Today, if you see from the purchases that were made plus the gift pack of dosages from India, Bangladesh is today the largest recipient of India-made vaccines in the world. We've supplied something like 54 million vaccines. Well, as of earlier this month, it was 54 million, maybe it's about 60 million now. And Bangladesh alone has about 9 million plus. So it is a sign of the importance that we attach to a country that is, after all, the 8th largest population in the world. And a recognition of the fact that, as we've quoted on all the dosages of vaccines that are going out on the containers, may all be free from disease, which is our own civilizational approach to health. So the idea is that no one country can sort of isolate itself and make itself well from this disease. We're all going to have to cooperate. So I see this health cooperation as a means of going forward, and I'm confident that we will be able to build on this to take forward health cooperation between India and Bangladesh, but also within the rest of the region.
Thank you so much, sir, for talking to All India Radio.
Thank you very much. It's a great pleasure to be on your show.
You are listening to an interview of India's High Commissioner to Bangladesh, Vikram Doraiswami. The interviewer was Rajesh Kumar Jha, Prasar Bharati Special Correspondent, Dhaka. This program was produced and presented by the News Services Division of All India Radio. You can listen to it on our mobile app, News on AIR. This program is also available on our website, newsonair.com. You may email your opinion about this program at airnsdtalks@gmail.com.
This is All India Radio. In the program Spotlight, now we bring you a discussion on PM's visit to Bangladesh. The participants are Veena Sikri, former diplomat, and Simran Sodhi, journalist.
The PM visited Bangladesh for 2 days, and this was also the 50th year of close ties between India and Bangladesh. This also marked the centenary of the birth of Bangladesh's founding father, Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, and the Prime Minister also participated in the Golden Jubilee celebrations of Bangladesh's independence. We have also seen that 5 MOUs have been signed during this visit, and the Prime Minister with his Bangladeshi counterpart, Sheikh Hasina, held talks, and both countries have resolved to take this bilateral relationship forward. Ambassador Sikri, when you see this visit of the Prime Minister to Dhaka, how much of an impetus has this imparted to the bilateral ties between India and Bangladesh?
It is a significant visit. In every way, it is described by the Prime Minister in his article as a Sonali Adhyay, a new chapter, a golden chapter, a new push to Bangladesh-India relations, because this visit was full of very significant symbolism, but also very great substance. So this combination of symbolism and substance has lent a great deal of importance to the visit. As you said, it is indeed the celebratory mode which caused the visit to take place when it did, because 26th of March was the 50th anniversary of the independence of Bangladesh, the victory of Bangladesh in the Liberation War. And together with that, the 50th anniversary of Bangladesh-India relations and the birth centenary of Sheikh Mujibur Rahman. The significance is that 50 years ago, Bangladesh and India were together, shoulder to shoulder, fighting the genocidal attack from Pakistan, in which 3 million people died, 200,000 women were raped. Terrible, absolutely. One of the worst such genocidal attacks anywhere in the world. And 50 years later, by side together, continuing to be friends and partners, participating now in the economic development of Bangladesh and India, growing together, sharing values, and bringing our individual strengths to develop the region, the sub-region, and the region, and the whole of Asia. So I think this was a great deal of symbolism, and you saw that when Prime Minister was the guest of honor at the 50th anniversary celebrations, the National Day of Bangladesh on 26th March, the speech made by our Prime Minister, the speech made by Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina, they were full of emotion, full of very genuine feeling. Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina mentioning in such strong and warm words about her affection for India, how India has helped Bangladesh at every turn, how she lived in India after her father had been assassinated and there was a military dictatorship in Bangladesh after that. And our Prime Minister mentioning his own involvement with the move for Bangladesh liberation together with other members like former Prime Minister Atal Bihari Vajpayee of the Jansangh at that time. So, this was really a very significant moment for the people of Bangladesh to hear this and to feel this warmth of friendship between the two leaders. But the second day, on the 27th of March, when the Prime Ministers of India and Bangladesh had their substantive meeting, had the delegation level discussions and signed all the documents, that is when we also saw that in addition to the symbolism, there has been really great movement ahead on the substance of the relationship between India and Bangladesh. And I think that the important point about this movement ahead is that it is taking place all along. It is not only when visit takes place like my Prime Minister's visit, but a week or 10 days before this visit, there was the Friendship Bridge, the Maitri Setu, inaugurated virtually by the two Prime Ministers. And in December 2020, there was a virtual summit between the two Prime Ministers where they had again issued a joint statement with very substantive progress on connectivity projects and trade and so on. So obviously, the relationship between Bangladesh and India is developing according to a very strong plan agreed by both countries, and it is being accompanied by constant review, monitoring, implementation of the projects, and this has been a great matter of strength. If we look at the various documents signed, I would say that the MOU on the establishment of a framework of trade, of cooperation in the area of trade between India and Bangladesh is very substantive, because it not only will mean that both countries are going to constantly review the area of trade. Bangladesh wants to increase their exports to India, and India is willing to help them in every way through whatever problems there may be, non-tariff barriers, para-tariff barriers, and both countries are moving ahead to sign a CEPA, a Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement, and talks on that have been held, and the model is being discussed and so on. So this was really very important, and the cooperation between Bangladesh and India, as seen through the agreements not only signed yesterday but also the earlier discussions that have been taking place, is now encompassing all fields of cooperation. It's like what our foreign minister called a 360-degree partnership. Every sector is covered. And you see young entrepreneurs being involved. 50 startup entrepreneurs from Bangladesh will come to India. You see the 1,000 scholarships, additional scholarships being given to Bangladesh students, the Golden Jubilee scholarships they are called. This is new and will mean much more people-to-people interaction when Bangladesh students come to India.
Ambassador Sheikh, Prime Minister in Bangladesh also handed over a symbolic key to his counterpart for 109 ambulances, which are a gift by India, and also talk a little about the vaccine Maitri. India has donated around 1.2 million doses of COVID-19 vaccines as a grant to Dhaka, and that we have seen that this vaccine Maitri has been extended to almost all nations in the neighborhood, Bangladesh being one of the recipients. How do you see this vaccine Maitri then playing out in the neighborhood first policy, and also when you come to the India-Bangladesh relationship?
The health sector of cooperation, which is indeed comparatively new in the cooperation between India and Bangladesh, but very, very significant, because the COVID pandemic has shown to South Asia and to the rest of the world that health emergencies are just around the corner at all times. They can occur at any time, and countries need to be prepared. And our Prime Minister, immediately after the pandemic hit South Asia, our Prime Minister had convened a virtual summit of the South Asian countries and declared the importance of South Asian countries cooperating in this. And among the countries of cooperation in South Asia, the cooperation between Bangladesh and India in overcoming the pandemic has been among the largest. And we saw right from the beginning, whether it is PPEs or masks or medicines or training of doctors, this happened on a regular basis between India and Bangladesh over the last 1 year. And now when the vaccine has come on the scene, and it is very, very important at this time, then Bangladesh has received one of the largest grants or gifts of vaccines from India. Originally 2 million doses were given as gifts. Now yesterday another 1.2 million doses have been given as gifts. In addition, Bangladesh has made arrangements with the help of India to secure commercial supplies from the Indian manufacturer Serum Institute of India. So all this is going to contribute greatly to the Bangladesh's efforts to overcome the pandemic, and this has been very significant. In every way, I think the multi-sectoral cooperation between Bangladesh and India has shown that indeed the Bangladesh-India relationship is a model, the example that all of South Asia can follow. And in fact, our Prime Minister mentioned that the friendship with Bangladesh, the cooperation with Bangladesh is a key pillar of India's neighborhood first foreign policy. And indeed, this has been illustrated in every way because all the sectors have been covered. The 109 ambulances are very much much a part of the health sector cooperation. And I would say that if you look beyond the neighborhood first policy, Bangladesh has acquired importance, as we can see through the talks between our prime ministers and as mentioned in the joint statement. Even in our Act East policy, in India's Act East policy, the cooperation with Bangladesh is very significant because we are looking at Bangladesh holding a very special position as a bridge country between South Asia and Southeast Asia. And all these connectivity and infrastructure projects that are being developed over the last many months, in fact, these last few years have seen a great progress in the development of the infrastructure projects. And through this, we can see that the access of India and Bangladesh to Northeast India and through Northeast India to the rest of Southeast Asia is now a great reality. And Bangladesh has requested to join the India, Myanmar, Thailand, the trilateral highway, and through that they will have access to the Southeast Asian countries. So Bangladesh is very interested. Also, we see from October this year, Bangladesh is going to be the chairperson of the IORA, Indian Ocean Rim Association, and they have requested to work with India in this area. So we see that in the maritime area also the cooperation is very significant.
Ambassador Sikri, the issue of the Teesta Water Agreement, which continues to be talked about, but it's an agreement which is still not reached. We also saw that in the meeting between the two prime ministers, the Teesta Water Agreement issue was raised. Another issue that has come up is the issue related to the Rohingyas. And India has said that it would be happy to facilitate a safe, speedy and sustainable return of the forcibly displaced people from Myanmar. How do you see, one, the Teesta agreement, which talks have been going on for a long time, but we really haven't seen an agreement, and the Rohingya issues, how does this play in the bilateral relationship?
The Teesta water sharing agreement is very important because between any two countries, for any country individually, water availability is crucial, and Bangladesh has been having a great concern that the Teesta River, which has a very long dry period of about 7 months, and during these months a very small, only 10% of the total supply of water is available. So this is something that is of great concern to them. Now it is known that way back in 2011, India and Bangladesh had agreed to a document on water sharing of the Teesta River. But because of the internal politics of India, the position of one state government, this could not actually take place. And India has always shown the greatest importance to concluding this agreement. In fact, the Prime Minister on 26th, when he met a lot of the groups in Bangladesh, he met the alliance partners of Awami League, he met the opposition parties, he met young entrepreneurs. Each of them asked him about Teesta. And each time he gave his own assurance that I am doing my best to get this Teesta River agreement concluded as soon as possible. And it's mentioned in the document as well, the importance of the Teesta River and the need to conclude it as soon as possible. Water resources is certainly one of the most important and sensitive areas between India and Bangladesh, but both our prime ministers have shown the keen importance they attach to it, and I do hope that very soon there will be a progress. Certainly, as far as the Rohingyas is concerned, the forcibly displaced persons from Myanmar, the Bangladesh government is very concerned about it because they have given shelter to these people. More than 1 million displaced persons from Myanmar are now living in the camps in Bangladesh in the Chittagong Hill Tracts region. And Bangladesh is very keen to see an early solution to the problem. And this year, as you know, India is a non-permanent member of the Security Council, and Bangladesh has requested India to play an active role in making sure that this problem is solved. And we certainly would like to see this problem solved. Government of India, Prime Minister Modi and other leaders have assured Bangladesh that we are very serious about this. We are, in fact, that is one of the reasons that we keep in touch with all shades of opinion in Myanmar to see at what stage and how we can find a way out so that the agreed persons, the persons who have the requisite papers and other conditions demanded by the Myanmar government, at least we can begin with those and send them back to Myanmar, and then gradually all the other people can also go back. So this is certainly, it has been flagged in the joint statement and it is there as an important issue, and I'm sure that India and Bangladesh will remain in constant touch on this.
Ambassador Sikri, we also see that on security cooperation, recognizing terrorism has remained one of the main points on agenda, and the Prime Minister also expressed India's appreciation for the cooperation extended by Bangladesh on security issues. And we have seen that under Sheikh Hasina, the anti-India elements have not really been able to operate from Bangladesh. How important is this cooperation between the two nations, and also the recognition somewhere that India faces cross-border terrorism from Pakistan, and how this ties into the fact that India has been pressing globally for the recognition that it has been a victim of cross-border terrorism. How does this tie in the equation then?
The cooperation between India and Bangladesh on counterterrorism is one of the significant success stories of the bilateral relationship. And certainly the role of Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina in readily agreeing that she is not going to support any foreign terrorists on her soil, and she's going to make sure that no anti-Indian action takes place from the soil of Bangladesh. She has given this assurance and she has kept up to the assurance. And right in the beginning, when she came back to power in 2009 for her second term as Prime Minister, and she's now in her fourth term as Prime Minister, at that time she had immediately taken action and completely finished off the support which was being given by the earlier BNP government to the Ulfa and other Northeast Indian insurgent groups who were taking shelter in Bangladesh. And Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina even handed back some of the senior members of these groups who were living in Bangladesh. So she has shown great seriousness, and she's very clear that she's doing it because she thinks that it does not benefit Bangladesh in any way. There is no interest in Bangladesh keeping foreign terrorists on their soil, and it only harms the security interests of Bangladesh. And she says that the people of Bangladesh don't want it either, and this is true. So I think that this support from Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina has been very valuable. And beyond that, now you see the security agencies of India and Bangladesh, they are constantly cooperating, they're constantly exchanging news and information and updating their data sheets and making sure that this cross-border effort, whether Pakistan does it through Bangladesh, and they were doing it earlier through Bangladesh very regularly, and now that it should not continue at all, but Pakistan keeps on trying to do it like that. So the cooperation between India and Bangladesh security agencies is very vital in this area, and our cooperation is ensuring the great friendship and support between the two governments is ensuring that this counter-terrorism cooperation remains very high on the agenda and is continuing very actively.
And in the coming days, we will continue our discussions on the India-Bangladesh relationship and on the Prime Minister's very successful visit to Dhaka. With this, we bring today's discussion to an end. Thank you.
Thank you.
You were listening to a discussion on PM's visit to Bangladesh. The participants were Veena Sikri, former diplomat, and Simran Sodhi, journalist. This program was produced and presented by the News Services Division of All India Radio. You can listen to it on our mobile app News on AIR. This program is also available on our website newsonair.com. You may email your opinion about this program at airnsttalks@gmail.com.